All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I pray everybody's doing well. You done already? We are at the seventh chapter of Evolution of a Revolutionary. All right. See y'all. I'm gonna get through this one. I'm gonna get through this one. I know I can. All right. So for those who just joined us and you are not caught up, you're gonna have to go back on the replay because a lot of stuff has happened, and I'm just about to jump into chapter 7. So the opening quote says, "My mother said Tupac was her soulmate, and my life reflects that." And that's Sekiwa Shakur. So, you know, she is the daughter of she's the daughter of Afeni and sister of Tupac, and she kind of still, even up until now, lives in the shadows of Tupac, even after his passing, right? And so this chapter, I believe Jasmine is going to go into getting her perspective. So let's continue. Why is a one-time story told only one time? And that one-time story, y'all, if y'all didn't hear the one-time story, you got to go back and listen to chapter 6 because that one-time story was wild. It ain't one time no more because it's in the book. Anyway, why is a one-time story told only one time? Because it is a story we yearn to delete from our history. One-time stories hurt more than the stories we tell over and over again. Our oft repeated family stories can be painful, traumatic, colorful, and blasting, like the crossings of oceans and losses of innocence, the deaths of mothers, the diseases of our grandfathers, the affairs of fathers, the incarcerations of sons. We pass these stories down from aunt to nephew, mother to child, father to son, and to tell them just often enough to keep them alive. But a one-time story is better dead, and that is the difference. The pain is different in the one-time story because at its core, there is humility and remorse. The one time story hurts more because deep in the pit of the truth lies the realization that it was all your fault and the harm could have never been undone. But the record must be set straight. So now I know I must go to Sekiwa for the other one time story Afeni will not tell me now. The one time story she will share only with her daughter, just as I will one day share mine with mine. And so that's interesting, opening up to that one time story. I have a different perspective. The one time story needs to be told more than one time so that we can understand not only that it's your fault. Like when I look at this conversation, it was her fault, but then again, it was again the sins of the fathers and the sons and the mothers and the daughters, you know what I mean? And so to understand it so that it doesn't repeat in the next generation, you really need to examine it and continue to examine it until it no longer has that hold. If you can only tell it one time and then run away, that means it still has power over you. But when you are able to have power over it, then it no longer controls you in that way. And that's how you break generational curses, right? You have to be open to going beyond just telling it. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Let's continue. It has been months since Afeni shared her abortion story with me, but I would like to know how this incident affected her daughter. Afeni seemed relieved when I tell her I'm going to spend some time with Sekiwa. Yes, go, she's waiting for you. Sorry, Afeni smiles broadly. You must see Sekiwa's house. She's done well, and she did this all by herself. Sorry. I kiss Afeni goodbye and drive the 3 or 4 minutes to Sekiwa's house. She acted like she was going far. She drove up the street. Glow and Tommy Set and her 2 children, and Glow's daughters, Jamala and her daughter, Imani, all have homes within a 5-mile radius in Stone Mountain. It's like a commune, everyone floating easily from house to house while knowing they have separate corners of retreat. Set's house is contemporary but warm with hardwood floors. Antique framed family photos adorn the mantel. Shauna's sculptures made of soapstone and Ashanti fertility statues people the corners of her living room. African art and paintings splash colors along the walls, and I instantly feel at home. I see a joy celebrated in her home, a joy of being African and being American, of being healthy and young. I can't believe this is a child who once wanted to commit suicide. I don't want to bring this up first to Sekiwa, but it is foremost in my mind, as if she knows this to be true, and not being one to ignore the elephant in the middle of the family room, she starts off with her newfound peace. She attributes her sanity to the treatment she received at Sierra Tuscan, a rehabilitation center in Arizona. She says once she was diagnosed with post traumatic stress syndrome, it all makes sense. She says she could get help and learn how to help herself, Seth says calmly. Post traumatic stress syndrome, I repeat more for myself. What are the symptoms? I mean, that's what Vietnam vets suffer from and people who survive 911. I know, she says, PTSD is something we don't always see right away because something else is going on. Like for her, it was depression and suicidal. She had these fits and rage, but to know that she's a trauma survivor has helped her get help and treatment. And exactly, they were terrorized as children. You know what I mean? Everything was so unstable that that's what I'm saying. People look at Tupac's outlet was his music, but if his sister didn't have similar outlet and response, then her trauma would have been expressed in a different way, right? And a lot of people, like, oh yeah, he was hurting, but if she was traumatized and she had PTSD, then chances are he had it too, right? She says here, with a name and diagnosis, you know what to do. Yes, I want to thank you for reaching out to me when you did. You said things that meant a lot to me, especially coming from you, Jasmine Guy. Unfortunately, at this point, I don't know what Seth's talking about. I feel a little tiny quiver of panic as I try to remember something I may have said to her that affected her so deeply. She says she hates that feeling. It's like the many times in my life when I can't remember someone's name. That feeling is crazy though. Lately, you just embrace the feeling. You be like, your face looks familiar, but I can't remember your name. And some people get offended and some people tell you their name. Someone I met before, but don't know how or when or what to call them. Seth's laugh interrupts me. You don't remember. This thing jumped. You don't remember, do you? She exclaims, watching my confusion. She is incredulous that something so important to her could have slipped my mind. I try to fudge. Well, not verbatim, I say. I mean, I know I talked to you about school and work and Nzinga's future and learning how to help yourself and take care of yourself, but Seth laughs again. You're a trip, she observes. You still don't know who you are. Now, what does that mean, I ask. You still don't know your Jasmine Guy, she responds. Well, thank you for clarifying that. She continues. You don't know how you affect people. I did what was natural for me to do, I say. All I know is you were on the periphery, said. When I first saw you, you had a little baby. You were 19 and your eyes were big, brown, and beautiful. You looked like a little kid trying to be strong, trying to hang with the state of emergency your family was in. But you needed normalcy and comfort, diapers and peace. That's what you needed. And instead, you were surrounded by chaos and despair. Your brother had been shot 5 times. He could have died, and there you were with your little baby. I reached out to you because nobody else did. It was a bad time. At the awful time when Tupac was first shot, no one seemed to be there for Seth, and everyone seemed justified in ignoring her. Tupac was shot, and he was their lifeline. All energies channeled to him, and Seth did what she could. Seth goes on, you started talking about feeling bad about yourself and what you were like at my age. You told me stories about being alone in New York, about being a dancer and feeling fat, about being lonely and making bad choices, and how you didn't like yourself very much. She starts to smile and laugh a little. I couldn't believe it because when I looked at you, especially then, it was like a whole nother thing I saw because I didn't think you would have had problems like me. This would have been at the height of Different World. This is early 90s, right? So this is Whitley Gilbert. When she says you're Jasmine Guy, you're thinking of Whitley Gilbert on Different World, right? You were different. You were light-skinned for one and famous and all. I just couldn't believe we really had things in common, like bad things. Yeah, we're equally messed up, we laughed. It was easy to reach out to you. You're easy to talk to. You are too, and you should know that, she says soberly. You should know the good things about who you are, not just the blinked up things. I'm uncomfortable with Seth talking about me, pointing out so clearly the things I have always known about myself. The shift in conversation from Seth and her promise to me and my battle with perspective keeps me quiet for a moment. See, sometimes you go prying at other people's stuff and then boom, flashback on you. My children used to say that one, a little flashback on you, right? Set smiles a bit smug. She seems amused that I could be so old and still so mistaken about my true self. I give in and provide some explanations. I'm sure it happened early, I tell Set. My perspective, my self image, I developed it a long time ago. And the way I see myself is always worse than it really is. But that is my reality. That's what you that's what you think your reality is, she corrects me. Right, whatever. Dang, she was really listening at Sarah Tuscan. I don't feel like being analyzed right now, nor am I sure I would do any good. It would do any good. I don't want to express my doubts and analysis to Set, where counseling and reflection have obviously helped her. The closer I get to Afeni, the more I realize how much she is like my mother, I tell Set. For real? Set is surprised. I guess my mother and hers don't seem to have much in common on the outside. Yeah, they're both tough and straight talking. They're opinionated and stubborn. It's easy to talk to them about things people find shocking or deplorable. Well, she may be easy for you to talk to, and other people, act like she's this guru or something. But she's my mother to me, so you could kind of hear already like is about to come. You know, there is a difference between how the mother presents outside and inside. And she says, yeah, even that I agree. Everyone talks to my mother, her students, her nieces. She always had stray cats. That's what I call my mother's other children. She called the other children stray cats. I can't. Kids that loved her and needed her and were always at the house. Kids that wish they had a mother like my mother instead of what they had. See, that's when you're on the other side of the fence. Grass always looked greener. If they had been her real child like you and Monica were, it would have been a whole other story. Like what I needed from my mom, she couldn't give me. I needed hugs, kisses. My mom isn't like that. That's funny, I say, because Afeni's very warm with me, affectionate and supportive. That's weird. That's what I'm talking about. Set looks at me wide-eyed. I see it with my own daughter. She's all over me sometimes. Mommy, you're pretty. I like your hair, mommy. And it gets on my nerves. I know she needs some affection, some loving, some attention, but you don't want her to need it. It scares you just like it scares our mothers. That's weird. I don't know. I don't know. That's weird. Your child needs hug. You know what I mean? You hug the child. You know what I mean? I know sometimes when you didn't get it, it may be overstimulated or feel weird, but yeah, that's when you're supposed to give it to them. When they're young, you're supposed to make sure that they understand that you're there. But anyway, and Zinga is just like I was, real sweet. She does okay in school, but she's not real smart like my mother and my brother. She's not an intellectual. She's more like me. And do you try to toughen her up? I can't help but wonder. Yeah, I try not to snap at her, but it's hard because I don't want her to be so needy, so gushy. She's soft, I say. Yeah, Seth agrees. And that scares you, I smile. I'm reminded of whipping my sister got when we were little. Monica, this is Jasmine talking. She flipped on us. Monica and I want to walk to school every day down this big old hill. After school, we walk back up the hill, sometimes with other kids. There's one day a little girl in Monica's class was walking with us, and she kept pushing Monica and punching her in the back. So I grabbed the little girl by her collar. How old were you? Fifth grade. I was 9. Monica was 6. Second grade. I told the little girl that if she didn't stop hitting Monica, her head would be bleeding on the cement, and she left her alone. Dang, Jasmine. But the little girl had a big sister in the 6th grade, and by the end of the next day, the whole 6th grade was going to beat her behind. My teacher was so freaked out, she drove me and Monica home. My mother got to the bottom of the story and found out Monica had stolen the little girl's candy or something. And that's why the little girl was pushing on her. See? Diligent inquiry. My mother was so pissed, she whipped Monica with the belt, and I listened from the other room crying. It was horrible. I just wanted her to stop. I used to cry when Tupac got whipped. Then my mother would spank me for crying for him, and Tupac would laugh at me. So you feeling for other people, and then they turn around laughing at you. Dang, I know you didn't come here to talk about me. Seth gets up. You want some iced tea? Do you have Coke? I just want to hear your side of the things, Seth. Your voice is missing in Afeni's story. From the table, she tells me I'm not really comfortable talking about her life. It feels like I'm betraying her secrets. But my mom said it was all right. She sits in a leather recliner and hands me my drink. And again, that's why a lot of I've said this before, and she's saying it verbatim. This is why a lot of people struggle with the healing process, because if the parents are the ones, or the family members, namely the parents, are the ones who did the damage, you feel like you're betraying them by acknowledging the truth of the matter, right? And so that kind of stalls the healing process. Let's continue. So, and sometimes if the parent doesn't give permission for you to feel and experience, then you rather sacrifice your reality, what you know to be true, for their feelings, and then you're stuck, right? Anywho, let me get a swig of water here. I just really need to know what happened once Afeni started doing crack, and if chapter 6 tells us how she started doing crack. I'm still, that one had me all day. What? Anyway, what happened to you? I just need to know about the things your mother won't tell me. Mm. She looks grown up today, confident. Why won't she tell you? Seth asked me, knowing that Afeni and I talk about almost everything. Because they are your things, and she doesn't feel she has the right. She understands and nods her head. So I may not know things you think I know. You knew about me being in the hospital, didn't you? Sits down across from me in her leather recliner. You know I tried to, no, not I, me, she. She asking, you knew that she tried to commit suicide, right? Yes, but I'm not sure why or what led up to it. She said she was tired of hurting. Her chest was so tired. She was tired of her chest feeling like that. She remembers the pain from childhood since she was a baby. She called Malcolm since he knew her all her life. They grew up together. They had she says we had our children together. She called him because they were close. Why am I so sad? She asks. Because your brother died, he told me. But I was sad before that, I said to him. And he said, you were? I thought you were just crazy. Crazy, yeah. My family just thought that she was crazy and acted crazy at times. She was angry, so enraged. She would scream and throw things and hurt people. And even the last time before she went to the hospital, she called her mother and asked her what was wrong with her. She asked why she was so sad and if she knew anybody who was always sad. And I often say that anger is the outward expression of sadness. And really, your mother is the one who bequeathed you that anger, because she walked around with a lot of anger. And whatever you meditate on while you're pregnant, whatever energy you're bathing in, oftentimes that's transmitted to the child. And so she's feeling a lot of anger and calling her mother to figure out why. But her mother was also a very angry person, according to this very book, right? So she says, I begged her to tell me the truth. Was she one of these people who was always weak and always needy? And will she always be sad? Hold on a second. This is the phone call Afeni told me about months ago. The phone call she said she was glad she could take. She had received it sober and alert, but she had no answers for her child. Seth continues, do these sad people ever live happily? She asked her mom. Can she call them and talk to them? Because she can't live like this, in this pain anymore. And she didn't want to be a strong Black woman. She didn't want to be dear mama. She didn't want to be Glow, just living for her kids. She didn't want to be Aunt Jemima. She was lost and so unhappy. Her life added up to nothing. This is sad and horrifying revelation. Still, she finds herself impressed by her ability to lash out and explode. She always this is Jasmine saying that she always implodes. She was pissed off at Tupac, Seth goes on, because she was the one who was going to kill herself. And then he died. So she couldn't even do that. Dang, that's messed up. And she says she called her father, Matulu Shakur, and she screamed, you better send me to some war, no, not me, her, to some war in Africa with whatever connections you have, because she needs to do something with this rage. Sounds familiar? She needs to be on the front lines, killing somebody or going to blink people, her, or blink herself. She spent the rest of the time on the couch with a gun under her chest. You were really going to blink yourself, Seth? Death was all around her. The son of a close friend of her mom's had committed suicide, you know. Another cousin of hers in Baltimore did the same. And Yafe, her cousin, dead. Tupac dead. It was no big thing to her to think about dying. It had to be better than living in rage, living in pain like this sadness. She talked to them in the living room. So she's talking to the people who passed on. Yafe, Tupac, and God, as if they were still right in front there with her. Yafeyu, if that's pronouncing it correctly, who was like a brother to her, told her he wouldn't leave. He did. She told Tupac he wasn't blinked because he always left her behind. And then she felt Tupac go like this. She raises her hands and shoots the finger as if she was saying, blink it. Like, leave it alone, said, and I did. She said she didn't kill herself that day because God had turned his back on her and was afraid that she would go to hell. She didn't want to die and go to hell, so she found her way to Sierra Tuscan and got some help. She says, you got left a lot, You got left a lot, said dumped. I'm feeling sad for the little girl who's now a woman and a mother of two. I'm surprised you don't do drugs. It was all around you. What in the world kind of thing is that to say? Like, yeah, that was some messed up stuff. I'm surprised Jasmine is bugging right now. Hold on. Peace to everybody who's just coming. We are on chapter 7. She says, no, Ashanti cured me of alcoholism, watching her drunk and mean and passed out. And my mother kept me from cocaine. I never want to be like them. I remember I tried reefer once. I told my mother and she was like, that's good, baby. You need something to relax you. What kind of advice was your mother giving you? That's good. You need something to relax you? The backside. I told my mom, son. I told my mom she was like, okay, wait, I said that already. Well, no, she said, hell no, I'll never do that, blink again. It was like a movie when your whole life flashes before your eyes. She saw herself as a crackhead. Nope. They kept me away from all that stuff, but I did other things, she says. Evidently, addiction did not escape her completely. She was addicted. She said her thing was sex. She had it early. She had a lot of it from 12 to 14. Dang. Yeah, we know where I was about to say, where was your mom? But we know where she was. That was the time Afeni was using. Yes, she never saw her do it, though. She was never around her high, but she knew. She would find stuff in her purse, pipes, and paraphernalia, and she would throw them out. One time, she called her over Charlene's house, and she says, me and her mom was talking. Then all of a sudden, Charlene was on the phone with me, and I knew someone had passed her mother the pipe. She just got off the phone, no hold on or goodbye or nothing. Dang. Charlene, I repeat halfway to myself. I know Charlene from Afeni stories about her. Afeni told me she was the only person she knew that smoked crack all day and still wasn't skinny. Charlene had money and a nice apartment, so the people who couldn't afford to be seen smoking crack, professionals, teachers, and whatnot, would smoke it right there at Charlene's till all hours. I can't. Was Charlene running a crack house, fam? She says, I remember Afeni's stories about Charlene because she was setting me straight about me saying she was homeless while she was on crack. I guess I assumed she was homeless or heard Afeni was homeless while she was using, but the part of the urban legend was not true. In fact, she lived in an apartment with some guy who made $700 a week, and they pay the rent with part of it and smoke up the rest. The rest of the time she spent at Charlene's. She says, when my mom was cracked out, she'd be gone for months. Seth says, months? But Seth would pretend she was around so they wouldn't take her away, like to a home or something. She went to school and everything. Wow, she had to basically raise herself. One day she was playing double dutch and twisted her ankle. And she remembers saying to the other kids, I would tell my mother and she would help me. She was limping for a week before her mother came home to check on her and was happy to see her. They had a nice evening and she started talking about Nunburb Lane, a group home for kids. She says she cussed her out. What? She was trying to put her in a home? She told her that she's paying the rent and taking care of herself. So why do she have to go away? She told her moms that you the blinking crackhead. She told her you go away, and she did, back to her crackhead boyfriend, and Charlene. So wait, who had the man with the $700? Hold on, peoples, 1 second. So the little girl had the man. In fact, Afeni was homeless. In fact, she lived in her apartment with some guy who made $700 a week, and they paid the rent with part of it. I thought she was living in a rent subsidized apartment. So okay, so it's the mother who had the boyfriend with the $700 a week. Okay, and then she tells her moms that she needs to go back to, okay. Oh, she cussed her out so bad because here she is alone in the eighth grade. Eighth grade! Tupac living with friends and working with Digital Underground. So this is early 90s. Her mom gone doing crack. Ashanti's in rehab. Her kids are with family and she's alone. She does what she can do. Then she pops in and out of nowhere and tries to be a mother, tries to make some decisions for me. Did you have a job? How are you eating or paying the rent? I asked. I don't understand how people live without work. She said she had a boyfriend and he sold drugs. Okay, she also had the eighth grader had the boyfriend too. And he'd give her money or he'd give her some reefer to sell. Eventually he moved in with me. Oh gosh. Dang, how old was he? The 23-year-old. What in all of I want to say, okay. What was the 23-year-old doing with the 14-year-old? Okay, let's continue. And you had an apartment and he didn't? This is some crazy stuff to me. See, after they left Ashanti, her mother applied for a subsidized apartment. That's what I thought. So she stayed there with him and he paid the $5 rent when the mother was delinquent. How she was delinquent on $5 rent with the boyfriend who made $700? So where was the boyfriend at? Charlene's house too? What in all of... Let's continue. She almost got evicted once, and he paid it because her mother wasn't around. No wonder you were enraged. Seth says softly she was filled with rage, but it would just come out in these fits. When she would go off, it wouldn't. She couldn't control it. Sorry, she couldn't stop it once it started. Everyone just thought I was crazy or she was crazy. Sorry. But now you know you're not. I bring her back to the present. Now you are here and a mother of two who can learn from your pain, but not have to relive it. Yes, says said, a little revived, and in much more the tone I found her in at the start of our conversation. Yeah, because you took her down memory lane. Like, that stuff ain't finished purging. You feel me? Because when you remember it, you're like, what? She says she loves Sierra Tuscan. It changed her life. Tupac would have loved it too. It could have helped him so much. Would he have gone? I asked doubtfully. I don't know, but he would have stayed once he got there. She uncrosses her legs in the big leather chair and leans forward, elbow to knee. She says that they had a sad childhood. Jasmine, he died before he could work everything out. Like if he had gone on to be, 35, 30, where he could look back on stuff and fix it or laugh about it. She doesn't know, apologize for things he had done to each other. Like you and Monica, like Glow and Afeni, her eyes glaze over, but she doesn't cry. But we didn't have that time. I'm so sorry you lost your brother, I say, and I do cry because I had not cried for Set yet, and it was time. She said, so Jasmine is crying, but Set's not crying. Okay. I'm so sorry you missed out on having him as you grow up and that your babies won't know their uncle. She smiles at me and says, thank you. I have my mother, though, and we've gotten a lot closer. I feel like she understands me better. She's more accepting, I tell her, and she's proud of you, Set. She's proud of the woman you become without her teaching you to be. She thinks she hasn't taught me to be the woman I have become. Set acts like that's ridiculous. Well, that's what she thinks, I shrug. She doesn't claim the good, but the bad is glaring. That's another trait she and my mother have in common. Maybe it's a mother thing, but it's clear to me that we both got, where my glasses at? We both got the good stuff too. You are strong and clear on your way when you could have died many times. That to me is Afeni. She always gets back up. I was never like her and Tupac, intellectual, political, charismatic, I add, loud, she laughs. I just wanted her to be able to love me anyway, even though I wasn't like her. Now I feel she does. Well, in the beginning, because she hated the fact that her mother was soft and you kind of like her mother, your grandmother, which she would have thought was weak, according to her, it was difficult for her to identify with that. But as she grew and realized, you know what I mean? That's just my assessment. But let's continue. I walked over to the baby pictures of Seth's children on the mantle. In the middle of their photos is an older frame picture of Seth at 7. She's smiling, and the plaits sticking out of the side of her head have bowed bold ribbons at the top. You're her baby girl, I say. She wants to rise to the honor of being your mother. And so that is chapter 7. We had a little reprieve off of chapter 6. I mean, there's so much to unpack even in that. Um, the entire story is a wild one. And being that this is her biographical type thing, is concentrating on her. And it's just wild. It's wild, but you can see the continuity. It's kind of like why you see them did Dear Mama and showed the parallels, but you can see the continuity in her life of energy that travels down through the generations and no one escapes. Like, she embodied that rage, but because her daughter had a different disposition, it manifested differently, right? Oh, I finished this one early. It manifested differently than it did in Afeni's life, because more projected it outward and used that rage in another way. But because her daughter wasn't necessarily loud or outgoing in that way, it imploded. It went inside and did damage within her. You know what I mean? And so again, emotions are something that we all share alike. Uh, Family and soul families are important to understand, to see what role you play, and even seeking help as she did, and able to get the information. Like she said, once you're able to diagnose something, once you know what something is, then you can navigate your way around it. A lot of it's good to see that even in this time, even though some of the information is wild, but even in this time on the internet, it's good to see so much information going out about psychology and mental disorders and just different things that before time you would just say the person was crazy, right? Or the person's head is not good. Now you can identify whether or not the person has bipolar, or the person is manically depressed, or the person has narcissistic personality disorder, or the person is a codependent, or everything is not crazy. Back in the day, they're like, oh, the person crazy, something wrong with them. No, now you're able to identify, okay, what's going on, and you could see the family structure that you're living in, to be able to see who are the players and what experience did I have growing up, and what position did I take, and how is that now plaguing me in my day-to-day life. And then you can go about a plan of how you fix this. A lot of people like, I'm on my healing journey, and I'll be like, from what? When I started this healing journey 20 something years ago, a lot of this stuff was still in books. It wasn't all throughout the internet like that. You know what I mean? Like, you had to go searching for information, and then blogs started coming up in the 2000s, and you still had to. Well, I remember when I was researching narcissistic personality disorder, I ain't had no DSM-4, no DSM-5. I had to go searching, and everybody that I came across was like, okay, this person is loony bin, this person is crazy. And now you have so much information, although people are misusing it to a degree, because everybody's not a narcissist. But I definitely think in the case of this story, her mother was also suffering from some type of post-traumatic stress, right? And because of that, the way in which she dealt with that within herself was to self-medicate and to rely heavily on substances to give her an altered state of mind so that you don't deal with the pain. A lot of time, that's why you take painkillers, so that it can ease the pain and it's tolerable, it's livable. And that's why I say the one-time story is not sufficient just to say it one time. It may take years to go through the one-time story, to comb through it, to see, okay, and not necessarily to just blame people. Oh, it's this person's fault, it's my fault, and self-loathing and no, it's to really say, okay, this is what I did. Hold on one second, because these are the one. Hold on, people. I'm gonna share the link as well. And this is where the Solonomics come in mind, right? I've over the years I have put together courses, written books, done studies, shared information, all of that. And what I realized, and even in the internet space, is that we the people, we like hype. This type of stuff takes like work. It takes introspection. It takes again, like her going to Sierra Tuscan. It takes a lot of willingness to move through those difficult spaces within us and come through on the other side. right? It's not just I'm gonna throw up a mantra or I'm gonna throw up a hashtag, I'm healing, and it works like that. It's very cyclical, just in the same way within our life. Like the situation with Afeni, the first husband wanted her to give it up in jail, and she said no, and then it came back again 20 years later, and this time she made a different decision, but she was still faced with the fact that, and this different decision spiraled her out of control, much like the first one did, right? And it looks like, oh, they're not even related, but they're very much related. You know what I mean? It's like you over there playing 3 card Monty, or you're on Price is Right and you pick door number 1. And when the opportunity comes up again, you're going to be like, nah, I picked door number 1 next time. Let me put door number 2 this time. Right? Why? Because you were informed by the decision that you did last time, and you kind of want to see, if I made a different decision, would it change? Right? But in her situation, it just devolved. Okay. And so the father wound in her family line, the way she internalized that father wound which is the lack of protection and provision. You see that consistent throughout her life, a lack of protection and a lack of provision. And because she didn't identify with her mother, then she was not nourishing, because that aspect of her femininity she saw as weak, because her mother embodied that and her father exploited her. So sometimes young children say, okay, if this is what's causing this person pain, then I'm not going to be that. So as a woman, we see her making choices that I'm like, I find it hard. Like, where? Huh? So all around, I'm able to see clearly from, how she got to this, just based on the information that we've been given. But that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know yours. This has been an interesting read. This is a short chapter. Let me see how many more chapters we got. We have chapter 8. No, we're not here about Billy Garland. We almost there. We almost there. Should I do chapter 8 too? Let me see the time. Let me move through. What's going on, Nasha? Nasha says femininity is a weak position. Depends. It depends on what you call weak. Right? This is what people would like you to believe, that femininity is weak and masculinity is strong, right? But then you would have to define femininity and masculinity, and then define weakness and strength. That's for me, because if I would have the conversation, but I don't know what you're defining as femininity or masculinity, then we could be missing each other in this discussion. You know what I mean? I think I'm gonna just update the title and just move through a few more of this so that we can move this along here. And keep having a discussion. I'm gonna go to 8 because 7 was short. James Baldwin quote, "But children, I submit, cannot be fooled. They can only be betrayed by adults." Interesting. So hours later, I'm back at Afeni's. It's dark now in Stone Mountain, and the air is warm and wet. I'm grateful for the mesh screen surrounding the porch at this time, because Afeni and I can be outside without being eaten alive by gnats and mosquitoes. I love the calm of warm East Coast nights. Nights are cold on the West Coast, no matter what time of year. And I'm still not used to the sudden drop of temperature that nightfall brings in LA. Afeni doesn't ask what I talk about with Seth. She just wants to know if the conversation went well and if I got the information for the book. She helped to fill in some blanks for me during your Marine City time when you were using, I exclaim as I open a bottle of Beck's. Sorry, I say, and nod to the Becks. This is a lot for me to hear at once. Afeni laughs a little. I know, she says. See, I knew what you were getting into. She laughs a little more. You didn't. Her laugh is hearty, and I smile while she gets a kick out of my emotional exhaustion. I don't know how therapists do this stuff all day. That's what I say. Shout out to the therapists out there. Especially if you're an empath, man. That joint mess you up. Says, I say, just listening to blinked up stories over and over, I'm whooped. I sip my beer, but I also inspired by the resilience of the human spirit. It's a fragile resilience, though. It seems like we are always on the edge of just not making it. That's why I tell you, your job is to take care of your daughter. If you can do that right there, you're fulfilling your duty. That's what I say. Take care of your children, man. I left Seth a critical at a critical point in her life. At the time in her life, she was developing into a woman. A time in her life when she was maturing and needed me there. Tupac was different, of course. My addiction affected him, but he was off doing his career like a madman. He was obsessed. He had nothing else to lean on, I say. Everyone was leaning on him, I think. I know. I'm just saying that he didn't need me like Seth did because he was older. He was 17 and 18 years old. He was a baby. 17 and 18 is not grown. He's like, this is the way he's going to eat. He's trying to get out of here. He's trying to get out of poverty. And so, the things that he needed, he didn't get it either. Says he was already out of the house. Seth was 13 and 14 years old, a crucial time for her growing up. Then she got pregnant. Afeni grabs her cigarettes and leans forward to light up. She sits with her legs crossed underneath her and her elbows rest on her knees. She begins to pull in the menthol smoke and it drifts over the view of the dark woods like a foggy mist. We all had issues due to abandonment. Who's saying this? Man, thing keep messing me up. She says, my daddy left, their daddies left them, and then I left them. Okay, so this is Afeni talking. Who daddy left? Afeni, I thought your mother left your father. She says they all had issues. Her daddy left. That's not what you told us before. You said your mother went up the road and left because your father was abusive. Anyway, let me continue here. Their daddies left, and then I left them. I'm going to continue for the sake of time. I looked at the clouded tree trunks lit by the floodlights on the side of the house. You can abandon someone and still be in the room, I tell her. That's a fact. That's a lot of parents today. You not even paying attention to the children, and they sitting right there. Yes, and I probably neglected them at times even before I used. But once she picked up the pipe, not her, before she used, but once she picked up the pipe, she left for real. You wasn't present because you got your self-worth by helping people outside because you were looking for validation. It started off looking for the validation from your father, and you didn't get that in the way in which you desired to because he had other issues, because he didn't get the validation from his father. So the work that you were doing outside was more important than inside. And so, yes, I agree. You left them before the pipe. And if she hadn't done crack, it would have been another drug. She'd probably still be using. But crack, that drug right there, does nothing but make you want it more. Crack takes over. Why is she talking about crack like that? Crack takes over, and she told you she liked cocaine. That was her drug of choice. Not alcohol, not heroin, not anything else. She speaks very endearingly about drug use, broski. What in all? She's like, I told you which one I liked. I'm like, whoa, fam, hello. What about hashtag don't crack is whack? Anyway, all that other stuff she could do and put down, but crack? I'm confused of the way in which we referring to the crack at this point. But that's why you thought you could do it, right? Your history had always been controlled use of cocaine. And then you met a drug you couldn't control. And it kicked your behind, Afeni concludes. No, click her behind. Well, you seem like you needed a butt whooping every now and then. I tried to joke, knowing she had more than her share of butt whoopings. I told you, she laughed. That's why Glenn Turman, that's his name, Glenn, hauled off and slapped me that day. For those who missed that happened in like chapter 1, chapter 2. What was his name on Different World? I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you his name right now. Glenn Turner, the actor. I can't remember his name on Different World. He was co-chief in Cooley High Harmony. Colonel Taylor was his name. And he married Jaleesa. Remember? All right, let's continue. Yeah. So she's saying that he was her boyfriend when she was at the Academy of Performing Arts in New York. And then he slapped her one day because she was talking reckless, according to her. And so that's what that reference is. She says, "Stop telling me that. It's disturbing," I protest as Afeni laughs some more. "I'm not talking about that kind of butt whooping." I know, Afeni breathes again. "She reminds me of Tupac right now." He laughed like Afeni, freely and deeply. They laugh from their gut and it sounds good. She remembers them all laughing together. Glow, Afeni, Tupac said, and it was loud and warm and infectious. They could laugh in the middle of chaos because chaos always caught up with them. Sorry. "You managed to stay together. There's still a lot of love in your family in spite of drugs, abandonment, and poverty," I remind Afeni. "Nobody stayed mad or stayed gone too long, but that anger is strong when it comes. Yet it simmers, then explode." She says, "They all got that, she and her kids. And your daddy, apparently." What happened to your mom? Anyway, she says they express it in different ways. She says, "Thank God Tupac had his music and his art because he was through with me when I was using," she says. Afeni lives it again for a moment, and he should have been. It was 1990, and she had come down to Marine City to see Tupac because by this time she lost her apartment and was living with this man. She was so poor and had no money except when the man got his money, and they used that on drugs. Afeni never names her lovers. They just become one big generic man, this man or the man. She No, we got a few names, but okay. "I have to assume that the man she refers to is the same man Afeni went to Lake Tahoe with when she left set in Marine City. Tupac had been to Japan with Digital Underground, and she went to see him. He gave her money that day," she continues. She remembered him going in his pocket and peeling money off a big wad. She may have bought food with it because she was so ashamed she couldn't use it on crack. Also, you still was present in your mind, eh? She would hear about Tupac coming through or being on TV and stuff like that, but they were not in direct communication. "He was ashamed of you." She said she would bring him down and he couldn't afford that. He was their only way out. So he couldn't deal with her being high and messed up. She remember once she had gotten very, very sick and talked to him on the phone. She tried to get him to come to see her, and he was like, "What can I do?" He was very cold. He was so hot with fever. No, she was so hot with fever that she crawled down to the lady downstairs, and when she opened the door, she could feel the heat from her body. She crawled down there to get money to go to the hospital, and she says, "I think she actually took me there. They gave her antibiotics, the fever went down, and she was okay. Then Thanksgiving came. Those two things really made her look at where she was. It wasn't about children because her daughter was safe in New York with Glow, and her son was safe out of town. Sorry, on his own. It was really her who was not safe. She was dying. And she knew that she was dying because her spirit was not there at all. She would go to bed at night and really not care whether or not she woke up. Something inside of her was pushing her to get home, get to New York and to her family. This is Afeni talking. She was on an insane, desperate mission to make it back home, even if it was to die at home, especially if it was to die. She wanted to die with her family, not alone in Marin County. So Tommy, Glow's husband, sent her some money for a bus ticket. She and the guy smoked that right up. I can't with her, broski. How you trying to get home and you smoke up the bus ticket, famzy? As desperate as you were to get home, exactly, I'm glad Jasmine asked. You smoked up your ticket money? Hey, she says, she was an addict. She did what addict does. Afeni says casually, Tupac met her at the bus station, him and his friend Mike Cooley. Tupac reached in his pocket and gave all the money that he had in his pocket. Mike Cooley went in his pocket and gave her some money too. She ended up with $60 and got on the bus. It was one of those winters where it was really cold in the West. In North California, where she was, they were waking up and water was thick and frozen. On the bus coming across, you go through Nevada and Utah. Utah was the first place, right in the middle of nowhere, where the bus broke down. The first time it broke down, they had to call and send another bus to get the passengers. Her feet was, my feet, I still have trouble with my toes. So we got on the new bus. They broke down another time. She developed a real love and appreciation for Salvation Army because they were at the bus station in Denver, Colorado with food, with hot soup and blankets. And they were concerned because lots of people were getting stranded in buses everywhere all over the West. Dang, I never think about the Salvation Army doing stuff like that. They lived up to their name, I said. This was December 1990. So we ain't had no cell phone. So she just out there. She says she always had to count back from her state of sobriety to know the year things happened. So she acknowledged her method of chronicling her life events. Yes, this was the first year of the bus strike also, so there weren't that many buses or drivers. She ran out of money at some point. Bro, you only had $60 too. Probably in Wisconsin. She sat next to a white woman from Berkeley on the bus, and she remembered concocting a story. She started acting like her credit cards were in her bag underneath the bus and all of that. And she shared her food with me, she says. That's basically how she ate coming halfway across the country. Your money from Tupac was gone, I say? Well, once I bought the ticket, yes. My family taught me home for real. Every stop I called them crying, cold, hungry, and alone, and they talked her home. Her daughter, her nephew, Katari, the youngest one, he gave strength over the phone. He loved me. He loved me, and he missed me, and he wanted me home. Now, Afeni cries, so moved by the love of her young nephew. When she says, my family, is as if she says, God. God talked her back home. She called God at every stop, and God talked her home. She got to Port Authority on Christmas Eve. She had 5 suitcases because I had everything I owned, she says. She called her family and told them that she was there because the bus was so off schedule they had no idea when she would arrive. By the time that the family finally got there, she can see herself right now. She was sitting on the floor at the Port Authority against one of those pillars with all 5 of her bags around her. She could have weighed 95 pounds when she saw her family come down the steps. It was the first time she felt human again. She had ceased to be or feel like a human being. She didn't know who she was anymore or even who she used to be. She really didn't. Yet there was a lot of. So when she saw them, it was like a signal that she belonged and really did belong someplace, and they loved her gently back to health. They took her home and they loved her and she started feeling human again. The power of their love is still palpable. They take care of each other, and these 2 sisters and their families. She remembered that autumn day in 94 during the trial when they saw this same clan encircle Tupac with a wall of protection. They loved him back to himself. She says she remembers him waiting in a wheelchair for his hearing to begin, and that picture's all over the internet, right? And they surrounded him just as they surrounded Afeni on Christmas Eve 5 years before when she sat broken on the floors of Port Authority. Again, Tupac's life mirrors Afeni's. Afeni continues. She thinks she must have gone and gotten on welfare. And when she got the welfare money, she would give almost all of it to Glow and Tommy. She would keep a little bit, but whatever she kept, she would use to get high. Father, help us now. Yo, bro, she came all the way back home to keep getting high. I know it's a process, but my. She would go to the bathroom. Tommy and Glow, mostly Tommy, had told her, you want to get high, you can get high. You can do anything you want, but you don't have to go outside. You don't have to be in the street. Basically, she accepted that as a wonderful thing. So now you coming to the nephew and everybody who wanted you safe to come get high in the house. She didn't really have to go out to get high. She could get high in the house, and that's what she did. She said the grown-ups would all go to the bathroom together and how it would smell sweet, but like stink. And she thought you all had sweet smelling stink. She laughed. I didn't like myself, she says, because she was getting high with her nephew, Scott, and he was getting high badly. When people get high, they get ugly. So she didn't like herself anymore than she had before. And she wasn't feeling good to going to bed. This is basically what was happening the first part of 1991. She was gaining a little weight, but was still getting high. On crack, by the way. This was New Jack City era. There was a lot of people who got caught up in this New Jack City era swing vibration here. Afeni recovery is crucial to her story. In fact, I think it's the only reason she wanted to write this book. Her road to recovery begins in the Port Authority that Christmas Eve in 1990. She had 5 more months of smoking crack in her sister's apartment bathroom, 5 more months of sitting on the toilet and blowing it out of the window, 5 more months of sucking on the pipe with her own nephew, Scott, until she finds an AA, or should I say, AA finds her. And I think I'm going to stop right there, and we'll come back to read the remainder of part 8. Let me see what's going on here in the comment section. Let me know how you guys are liking the reading so far. Like I said before, some of the stuff that I do not want to materialize or even call that stuff onto me, I do not read it in the first person. Okay, so if you read the book, a lot of it is written in the first person. Nah, I'm good. It says, Nyasha said, the way I was raised is that femininity is submission to your husband, giving your body to your husband to keep the marriage, sacrificing everything for your husband and children, cooking and cleaning. Okay. Oh, that's in relation to femininity. I mean, again, that's cultural definition of femininity, depending on what culture you may be coming from. And I definitely understand how people can arrive at this. But taking care of your home and taking care of what needs to be taken care of, the society makes it look like it's weakness. And that's kind of why we're in the position that we're in. This is just my thoughts. This is me speaking now. This is the same similar situation with Afeni. She saw what her mother was doing as weak. But when we get to that space and we no longer value the contribution of the woman, she moves out of her space and then she wants to become stronger and, quote, as she said in this story, become the man. And then you have Seth, and then you have Tupac, and then you have Scott. You have all of the people, the children who are born that don't have the nourishment, that don't have that mother figure that they need, and then therefore they're not rooted and they don't grow up as healthy adults, right? So yes, in this society, in many societies, many patriarchal societies, the feminine principle is looked at as weak, but it's not really weakness. It is a give and take situation. And without two working in tandem, then we don't have healthy societies and we don't have healthy communities. And here we are today. And this is what is pervasive throughout this entire story that we're reading, right? This whole story is the masculine is outside of his proper function. He views the woman as weak. He abused the woman, which is her mother. The daughter sees being feminine as weak. So she decides to be masculine, but she cannot take being masculine. So she begins to self-medicate. And then she goes through life looking for masculine, but also challenging masculine, right? So she keeps attracting the man or a man. And then the cycle repeats. He abuses her and then she abuses herself and he abuses her. And then her children, one dead and one alive, 2 dead, right, are out here because the man is not in his rightful position and the woman is not in her rightful position. So any which way it is, there is weakness when you exploit vulnerability. I don't necessarily see vulnerability as it can be weakness, but it's weakness for the masculine or any empowered person to exploit the vulnerable, right? Because it throws off the whole ecosystem. It throws off the whole thing. That's just my thought on that. I put the link in the box if anybody have any thoughts. If not, I'm gonna boogie. We at the 1 hour mark. We'll come back and read the second part of chapter 8. And we're gonna see how Billy Garland pops up. Although he was here already, right? But all throughout this book, he gets no shine. I don't know if it's because by this time they already went to court. It could possibly be that they already went to court because he goes after the estate when Tupac dies. So it could have been some bad blood from that particular standpoint, why she doesn't really want to go into it, because this would be 10 years later. And now I just thought about that when I said that. That may be a possibility why she didn't want to explore that aspect of it. It's possible. You know what I mean? So with that said, let me know if you're enjoying the reading. And Nasha, good points. Right now, cooking, cleaning, taking care of your home. I mean, you got to do it anyway. You know what I mean? You got to do it anyway, unless you hire somebody to come and cook and clean and do all the stuff. This we live in a wild place. Everything's upside down right now. Everything's upside down. For prayerfully, things will get back in order, because without a cohesive, functioning family unit, then society begins to fall apart. You feel me? So that's my thoughts on that. I'll see you guys again next time. And everybody have a blessed day.